My husband and I made some long-term permanent financial decisions a couple of years ago based on the fact that we didn't think I was going to live very long. I didn't have any serious diagnosis, but I was 60, 61. I could barely climb a flight of stairs. I'd have to take a break. My knees hurt, my ankles, my wrists. I felt like an 80-year-old woman
Hmm.
and my heart didn't feel right. I just knew things were right. I was on Lexapro for depression. I was on Prilosec for acid reflux. And I was on a Tenolol, 50 milligrams a day of Tenolol for high blood pressure and an irregular heartbeat. I thought I had cancer. I had
Oh,
a
wow.
big, big knot that just grew like over a weekend on the back of my neck.
Wow.
Went to the doctors and they did the contrast dye, MRI, whatever it is they do there, and came back and said, "Oh yeah, that's not good. We need a biopsy." Well, immediately when I got the thing, I had been plugged into Kenberry already, and
Hmm.
I took my 20 net carbs down to 10 total carbs or less, because I knew at that point that the sugar feeds the cancer. None of the doctors I saw told me, but I knew that. So I took the carbs down. Well, by the time a couple months later into this process, when it was time for the biopsy was scheduled, the lump went away. I
Oh,
canceled the
wow.
biopsy. And I went back to my doctor and I said, because I can fool myself, right? I didn't want to think that I had this thing. I said, "Will
Hmm.
you double check this for me?" And he checked it.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to talk with Karen Burton today. Karen, for those that don't know anything about you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Karen Burton from Cincinnati, Ohio. I am 64 years old. I'm a wife and a mom to three grown boys. Two of them that I raised, one that somebody else graciously raised for me, who I just met 20 years ago. They are all in their 40s. Three beautiful daughters-in-law and eight grandchildren. I'm a Christian and very active in my church. I also I spent 30 years in a cubicle farm, computer programming, project manager, all that kind of stuff, and retired, but can't seem to stay retired. So I drive a school bus now. I've been doing that for 5 years and I love it. I had no idea that I would enjoy that kind of work, but I do. I'm out every day. I get to see the sunrise every day, get to see all those beautiful little children get on the bus and see their families and their dogs and their grandmas. And it's a lot of fun. So, but the reason that I'm here, I have been obese all my life.
Hmm.
So for 60 years, starting when I was in grade school, kindergarten, first grade, obese. And mom put me on diets, was trying to help me, didn't know how, of course. Nobody in those days did. Started going to Weight Watchers with her when I was 10, and went in and out of Weight Watchers many times over the years. Tried everything. I even tried Atkins back in the 80s or so when that was kind of coming up. And of course, had great success and felt great, but I got scared, right? We were all scared. We knew that went against every health rule
Right.
we'd ever been taught,
Hmm.
So basically, I've been battling obesity all my life. I probably started, well, I hit 145 once in my early 30s. So that's 30 years ago, right? And then from there, dieted my way up to 272 pounds. And
Okay.
I was just looking today at my charts. I really was closer to 274. I couldn't let myself see that number. The biggest number I could see was 272. So actually, I was driving a school bus and I saw these people who used to shuffle to their bus every day. They started walking a little faster, standing a little straighter, and they were shrinking very fast. One of the
Mm.
bus drivers lost 100 pounds in 6 months. And another
Wow.
one who I noticed he was hanging out with an awful lot, she lost about 40 pounds in the same amount of time. But of course, she wasn't as big as he was to start with. And I pulled him aside. I said, "What are you doing? You got to tell me what you're doing because I've never seen that before." So this is probably 3 years ago. And he said,
Okay.
"Well, I'm carnivore now. I just eat meat. I'm OMAD." I said, "What the heck is an OMAD?" He said, "Well, I just eat once a day. I just eat about noon. We have our little break in the middle of the day as school bus drivers." I said, "I eat about noon. I eat a big steak and I'm still hungry. I have some bacon and That's all I ate till the next day. And I thought, this guy is crazy. And you're going to die. He just lost 100 pounds.
Right.
But I could not imagine, how people think. Now I understand how people think when I tell them pretty much the same story, right?
Right.
I could never do that. And from where I was, I most certainly could not do that. So then I pulled aside the lady who lost 40 pounds. I said, so what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because I can't do what he's doing. What are you doing? She
Right.
said, well, I'm doing this keto thing. She said, I eat 2 meals a day, sometimes three, and she was a little more lax with her carbs. She was more keto. But she was under 20 total carbs a day, or she may have been net carbs. I know when I started, I was net carbs. But I said, will you help me? I think I could do what you're doing. Will you help me? So she helped me get started in keto. And that I thought was 2 years ago. But after I had been on that for 6 weeks, I'd lost 20 pounds, was feeling pretty good. And she asked me to do a video for her. And I'd never done anything like that before. And I did a little video and I hated it because I'd only lost, so what, I'm all the way down to 250, 260 at the time.
Right. Right.
Did not like pictures or videos of myself. And I was so glad that I found that last fall. Because as I progressed along, I picked up the keto. I didn't understand carb addiction. So I kept being pulled back in by that. And I didn't really understand carb addiction until last August, just 4 months ago. When I had my last carb binge on August 4th. And it's like, duh, I get it now.
Uh-oh, wait a minute. Carb binge. What's this?
I can't have a slice of pizza because a slice of pizza is not a slice of pizza for me. Slice of pizza for me is a 2-week carb binge.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Like a fish hook.
cake, cookies, and
Gotcha.
ice cream. And yeah, it's like, oh, so then once I got it, I locked it down,
Hmm.
and I had been so as I was going along, the 20 pounds I actually gained back because I totally walked away from keto. I couldn't make it work because I kept being pulled in. So I walked away for a year. And then I came back I gained that 20 pounds back, was feeling very unhealthy. I mean, my husband and I made some long-term permanent financial decisions a couple of years ago based on the fact that we didn't think I was going to live very long. And I didn't have any serious diagnosis, but I was 60, 61. I could barely climb a flight of stairs. I'd have to take a break. My knees hurt, my ankles, my wrists. I felt like an 80-year-old woman
Hmm.
and my heart didn't feel right. I just knew things were right. I was on Lexapro for depression. I was on Prilosec for acid reflux. And I was on a Tenolol, 50 milligrams a day of Tenolol for high blood pressure and irregular heartbeat. And those are things the doctors told me I'll have to be on forever. And I kind of saw that when I lessened the carbs, I lessened my need for the Prilosec because I never I knew that was wrong. I didn't want to be on it. But every time I went off it after a couple of weeks, I'd be throwing up. Like, well, you can't be doing that either. So I go back
Right.
on it.
Hmm.
Um, Blood pressure, I got to lower a little bit when I quit my high stress cubicle farm job. Right. I got to cut it in half. It's like, oh, that made a difference. But still a year ago, I was on 25 milligrams a day. But then in August, when I got it about the carb addiction, after hanging out in Ken Berry's PhD community and listening to the good people there and picking up, well, at that time I hadn't watched too many YouTube videos, but really plugged into Ken Berry's community, and that finally they all talked about it. Okay, I finally got it. And I cut that out. I was 10 total carbs a day, which I started a year ago. I thought I had cancer. I had a
Oh, wow.
big knot that just grew like over a weekend on the back of my neck.
Wow.
Went to the doctors and they did the contrast dye, the MRI, whatever it is they do there, and came back and said, oh, yeah, that's not good. We need a biopsy. Well, immediately when I got the thing, I had been plugged into Ken Berry already. And
Hmm.
I took my 20 net carbs down to 10 total carbs or less because I knew at that point that the sugar feeds the cancer.
Right.
None of the doctors I saw told me, but I knew that. So I took the carbs down. Well, by the time a couple months later into this process, it was time for the biopsy was scheduled, the lump went away. So I
Oh,
canceled the
wow.
biopsy. And I went back to my doctor and I said, because I can fool myself, right? I didn't want to think that I had this thing. I said, "Will
Mhm.
you double check this for me?" And he checked. He's like, "Yeah, if it's there, I can't find it." But
Wow,
I
that's amazing.
felt so good on 10 total carbs. I just kept doing it. So I did that for a year. I had full labs from a year ago when I started the 10 total carbs. And it was my birthday. That's when I go do my annual exam. My fasting insulin was 34, which the doctor had never spoken to me about. And I didn't know about except that I heard Ken Berry talk about it and then
Mhm.
started reading some of the books, The Case Against Sugar and The Case for Keto and How We Get Sick and Brain Energy. All of those talk about insulin resistance. I had never
Mhm.
heard of it before then. So 34, I knew was a really bad number. And
Right.
being obese all my life, this has been my doctor for 20 years. He checked my fasting insulin only 3 times in 20 years of annual physicals.
Yeah. Wow.
So I don't have all the data points, but I do have 3 data points over time that showed it was been climbing. It hasn't been under 20 in over 20 years. So
Goodness.
yeah.
Wow.
So that I knew was big. So I stayed on the 10 total carbs and then kept falling off, last year all the way up until August when I figured out this carb addiction thing. And part of that was I had seen a few YouTube videos. Watch Amanda, Carnivorous Me. Like, oh my goodness, in the time that I've lost 10 pounds, she's lost 100 pounds. You know,
Right.
maybe I should, why is this not working for me? Well,
Mhm.
I've always tracked really well in Carb Manager. So I sat down with my Carb Manager and I went back through my food logs for the whole previous 6 months. But,
Mm.
in 6 months' time, I had not been under my 10 carbs a day that I thought I was doing so well. I hadn't done that for more than 2 weeks at a time in 6 months. Like, well, that's why I wasn't working. I kept carving up.
Right.
So that's when I got serious. I took it down to the 10 total carbs and felt so much better. It was amazing. And then in August, like just a few weeks after that, I felt a shift in my body and I didn't know how to even explain the shift. But 10 total carbs most days, I really wasn't that hungry. But if I was, I'd grab a pound of bacon or something.
Mhm.
But something happened in August, the shift that I didn't even think about food. The way that I looked at food, thought about food, the way it actually felt was different. And I thought, that's my fasting insulin. And I went and had it checked and it was 13. And that was
Wow. That's
that might have been
huge.
September. Yes, that was a year. And then my annual physical that I did again, November 1st, it was down to 11.
Wow. That's amazing.
And I looked at my
Yeah.
husband and I said, "Do you think we should go carnivore? Should we just go carnivore?" Because I'm watching all this stuff and I'm thinking that, as it's been cleaning up, he and I are both, he's lost 60 pounds in a couple years, and we're both very healthy and happy and energetic. And it's just a whole different life. And I said, "Well, maybe we should clean this up a little more, go carnivore." And he said, "I thought we were carnivore." I talked to one of my friends and she said, "Yeah, I thought you were carnivore." And I talked to my sister. She said the same thing. So I went back and looked at my food logs starting in August. It's like, yeah, pretty much. I mean, I might have an onion once a month. You know,
Right.
I make garlic butter. I put a clove of garlic into 2 sticks of butter. So I'm thinking that's not carnivore. It's like, yeah, we've been mostly. And it feels good.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So was it more intuitive eating that you ended up that way, or was it a conscious choice to go carnivore?
Well, it wasn't conscious, but what was conscious was I can't deal with those rogue carbs anymore. So I
Right.
can't have a cookie I had a keto ice cream that was my own little recipe that I made up. Like, no, that's not helping me. So I got it was more of, gee, I have to get rid of these things. And then I've never been a big vegetable eater. Like, I don't like, I could take them or leave them.
Right.
I love the simplicity of just a piece of meat for a meal. I always have frozen hamburgers. I always have frozen meatballs. So I've always got something quick I can make. There's never less than 2 pounds of bacon in my fridge. When it's on sale, I load up. But a year ago, a pound of bacon was a snack at 10 o'clock at night. And now a half a pound of bacon and that's pretty much dinner. I'm good with that. So a lot has changed. I've lost 70 pounds over the 2 years. I have 60 more to go. And,
Okay. That's amazing.
and I know that I'm going to get there. I don't know when because my destination is optimal health and
Right.
maintaining this lifestyle the rest of my life. Whether
Right.
that be I am 64. It's like, well, that could be a year, a day, a month, or it could be 30 years.
Right. So, in terms of benefits that you have seen, obviously you said you still have a little bit of weight to lose. So, do you think that your issues that you had before, like the depression, the high blood pressure, the reflux, that was related to weight, or is that a separate thing altogether?
I believe that was due to the insulin resistance. The
Okay.
more that I've learned and the more that I've seen how it's cleaned up. Now, the depression, actually, when the whole COVID thing came and the vaccines and all of that, and it's like, oh my gosh, our medications they're not even made on shore. I didn't even know what's in these medications.
Right.
No, and even if they were made on shore, would I trust, the whole trust thing?
Right.
So that really made me want to get off all my medications right away, which you can't do with any of those, right? I mean,
Right.
yeah, the acid reflux, you can play with that because you get immediate feedback that no, this ain't going to work. But the antidepressant, the blood pressure, you can't get off those right away. But with my husband's help, because doctors don't want to take you off an antidepressant, because if something bad happens, they're liable. I get why they don't want to do that.
Right.
But with his help and his oversight, and I did tell my sisters and I told my best friend, here's what I'm doing. We dialed down very slowly. And that I did after when I was just keto, and intermittent keto. Right.
Right.
And it worked fine. I actually was surprised how well that worked, but I think I was lowered my carbs enough.
Mhm.
It was the carbs that were doing it. So the antidepressants I've been off for 2 years now.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then the acid reflux was still a problem until August. And I knew it was related to carbs, but it would come and go and my medicine would come and go, as I needed it because I'm not going to be throwing up and burning my throat and all that good stuff.
Mhm.
But since August, I haven't needed any Prilosec. I had a little issue with Tums in October. I went to my doctor. I said, I've abused Tums. I was like, no, seriously. I went,
Right.
I'd been a gum chewer and I decided all of a sudden one day it was something in Dr. Barry's PhD community. People were talking about gum. And I thought, well, I never thought about gum being a problem. I switched from extra to Trident, as extra was 2 grams of carbs and Trident was one, but I'd have, 2 or 3 pieces a day. I'd never counted as carbs for one thing.
Right.
And then I read the back and they're all chemicals. So I decided one day, no, I'm not doing that. I don't need those. Like Dr. Barry would say, I'm a grown ass adult. I don't need a pacifier. But when
Exactly.
I went off the gum, I realized I had some habit stacking. Like James Cleary talks about in Atomic Habits, how we stack habits that we don't even know about sometimes. After dinner, I had my gum. So after
Mm.
dinner, I was looking for something. I'd grab a handful of Tomes. Like, oh my goodness. So I had that issue and then we took care of that. I haven't had a Tome since October. And I probably didn't need those.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Was it just because you had upset stomach, or why did you have to use the Tums?
Because I did need a pacifier after dinner.
Okay, gotcha.
I was missing my gum and Tums is kind of benign. I'm not going to get addicted to Tums.
Oh, nice. So after you basically said you've dieted for 50 years and these were considered healthy diets, a way to maintain yourself and be optimal, compare those diets versus what you're doing now.
Oh, it's amazing. Those diets they were very hard to follow. I felt like I couldn't go out like even holidays and things because you can't have this and you can't have that. And, you look at like, well, what's the least offensive thing when you're dieting? Oh, probably a peanut because I could justify the food. I could justify peanut butter. I could justify, oh, I'd probably exchange that for a fruit. I played a lot of food games. I learned how to play all the food games over the years, right? So all that game playing stuff, like that's all gone. And now when I look at a piece of cake, my stomach hurts. I still have some green beans in my fridge. When the kids came over for Christmas, I do make, they know I'm carnivore, basically. I make an awful lot of meat, but I'll make a salad for them. I know the girls like it. And green beans with a lot of bacon in it. And I cook them like Dr. Berry says. I cook the snot out of them all day, like my granny did. you know? And
Right.
I like green beans. That's always been one of my favorites. But I
Hmm.
look at that now and my stomach hurts just looking at it. Like it's not going to make me feel good. So now I don't even feel like I don't have all those food rules, really. The rule is I want to eat stuff that makes me feel good. I want to function. There's so much I want to do. And I don't want to eat stuff that makes my joints hurt. Yeah, it gives me brain fog and depression. My girlfriend, my best friend, she notices, when I get a little foul mood now and then, she'll say, have you been eating carbs? And
You ate
she's not low
beans
carb.
again, didn't you?
She's not low carb. She thinks, moderation, all those things I used to think a few years ago, but she said, it's a little unusual, but I've noticed it in you, the carbs really affect you mentally, and I say, yeah, like I've read brain energy. I've talked to a lot of people. I know that carbs affect a lot of people that way.
Right.
So yeah, it's way different. It doesn't feel as restrictive. It really feels more like freedom. I don't
Yeah.
even plan my meals. I mean, I've always got stuff on hand. Husband and I look at each other and he asked me yesterday, he said, do we have any more steaks in the freezer? Because, when they're on sale, we load up on those.
Hmm.
No, I don't think we do. We're just down to these little ham steaks, which we prefer beef. But yeah, we don't spend any time thinking about food. It's nice.
Yeah, it's almost like once you have detoxed, if you will, from the carbs and the standard American diet, your body reaches a point where it doesn't view food as a reward. It just looks at it as a fuel source, and your body intuitively knows this is not good for me. At least that's what happened for me. Is that what happened for you?
Oh, me too. Yeah, those green beans are gonna make my belly hurt.
Right.
Like how silly. I didn't used to even a year ago, I wasn't thinking about food in those
Right.
terms. That that food is gonna make me hurt. Mm,
Absolutely. So,
And I
how do you
wasn't
feel now compared to how you
good.
felt a couple years ago?
I feel great. I have energy. My brain is working. Well, one of the things I've noticed is creativity has kicked in. Like I didn't realize that was lacking, but it kicked in. And so sometimes things are spinning so fast and just driving around in my school bus. Yeah, I drive around empty half the time. You drop the kids off at school, you got to drive around empty to get back to the garage and, from the garage to the first stop. So I'm driving around empty a couple hours a day. And then on the way to work and back, I'm listening to audiobooks, right? but
Right.
but you can't do any of that in the school bus. And I think of all these things I want to do, and that's kind of new for me, And I have my midday break is 3 hours long, so I always have 5 or 6 hours worth of stuff I want to do.
Nice. So, what
Like,
kind of things are you doing?
well, I did start a YouTube channel.
Oh,
Nisha and Ken Berry always say if you've been on this a while and you guys are having some success, do a channel. And I have been helped by watching others. So that was kind of a scary new thing. It was fun and exciting, but so I'm still ramping up on that.
okay.
Um, and then when I started that one, I thought, so I'm actually starting a second one. Uh, the second one is one I've started pieces of other times over the years, but now I believe I have the energy and I'm learning things about YouTube that I actually can do it. The other channel is daily Bible readings. And part
Okay.
of my thinking with that is that and I've tried to talk myself out of it several times, but the thought won't go away. Like, okay, so I need to do it. 3 chapters a day, you get through the whole Bible in a year. So I'll start, and I've started loading those already. I haven't done my intro or, I haven't rolled it out yet, but I'm preparing for January 1st, and there's a lot of other ones out there. So that's why I was, is that really a place where I want to focus my energy? Like, yeah, it is, because at any time that's legacy for my grandchildren. They can tune in, they can go on YouTube. They didn't even have to find a disc anywhere. It's see grandma read her favorite book. So
That is
really
awesome.
excited
Love it.
about that one.
Very cool. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm sure the grandkids enjoy that as well,
Well, they don't know yet. I haven't rolled it out yet.
right?
They will.
But they
Even if
will.
they don't appreciate it now, they'll
Mhm.
appreciate it later. Yeah.
Absolutely. Very cool. So, in terms of meal preparation, what do you do now as compared to what you were doing before?
Oh my goodness. It's so simple. It doesn't take all the time it used to take to try to get together. And I know a lot of the carnivores and a lot of the keto people have all the great recipes and things that they love to do. It's like, I really don't. You know, I'm good with taking a steak out of the freezer today to eat tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll see how we feel like making it. If I am really busy or tired or whatever, it's going to end up in the air fryer. It'll be just fine. If I have a tiny bit of energy, it'll end up in the cast iron skillet and bacon grease. And I do have a little rub that I put on it. I'm not going to give up my spices as far as I know they're not a problem for me. So spices we do. And, if I'm really feeling, let's go do something fun, I'll fire up the grill. That's fun cooking for me. I'm going to throw a steak on the grill.
Nice.
So, and the same with the hamburgers. I'll pull the hamburgers out frozen, put them in the love my air fryer, put them in the air fryer, 10, 15 minutes. We've got a meal, or the meatballs or bacon in the oven. So it's um, liver. I used to make liver and onions. And I grew up on liver and onions, with the heavy gravy and all that good stuff. And we brought that back about a year ago. My husband loves it too. So I'd make the carnivore. I didn't flour them or anything. Well, it wasn't carnivore because I put an onion in there. I caramelized the onion first. And
Mhm.
along about September, about a month into this, I'm giving up the carbs, cleaned up so much of our eating just by saying I'm not doing that one thing anymore. And then that liver and onions, the gravy felt too heavy. So, again, in the PhD community, I saw somebody who had wrapped chicken livers with bacon. Now, well, we
Okay.
really like beef liver. So I get
Nice.
the frozen beef liver and I chop them up into bite-sized pieces and I wrap them up with the bacon and broil them in the oven. And that's our weekly liver and bacon. That's probably the fanciest thing I make. Yeah. Hot
Oh,
roast, I put it in the pressure cooker, 45 minutes. I've got a beautiful chuck roast. Yeah.
wow, that's awesome. Sounds like you're saving time eating this way for sure.
Yeah. Saving a lot of time and a lot of money. Now we do buy our quarter cow coming in February. So we got to get the freezer down. But I have a couple of sources of local beef and I have a source of local pork, which, we did buy our first half a pig in August and we really prefer the beef. Might not do the pig again
Right.
for the beef. But in between those, when I go to the grocery store, I always look to see what meat is on sale. And we don't really like poultry. Well, I have a niece who does raise her own chickens. We'll buy a couple of her chickens every year. They're very good. But for the most part, it's beef, sometimes pork. But whatever's on sale, I know I can pick it up and I know I can look on the internet and figure out how to cook it.
Nice. That's
We
awesome.
actually save a lot of money on our groceries that way.
Really? So how much do you think or do you estimate that you've saved on your groceries?
That's kind of hard to know because, well, I do know that a year ago when I go to the grocery store, it was a couple $100 a week because I thought that was, there's only two of us who live here. Grandkids don't visit that often. Most of them live out of state. The ones that are in state are getting older and they have all their activities. So pretty much that was $200 a week to feed two of us, and now when I go to the grocery store, it's maybe $100 if I find a really good sale on, they got ribeyes on sale. That's going to be a pretty hefty bill. But then I don't even need to go next week unless I'm out of mustard or eggs. You know?
Right, right. Nice.
So I'd say we probably cut, and then and what I haven't figured in is when we buy that half a cow, you
Hmm.
know, $1,500, but that half a cow will last me 6 months. We eat a lot of beef.
Nice.
My friends laugh at how they're like, really, that only lasts you 6 months? Like, well, yeah, that's pretty much all we eat. So
Yeah. So you roughly saved about half on your grocery bill just by eating beef.
I believe it's been about half. Yeah, because then there's no ice cream or chips or pop or, all those other things we used to buy. I used to buy a lot of vegetables, like a lot of people, 10 years ago when we tried to get healthy, we went really heavy towards fruits and vegetables. I used to have fruits and vegetables, organic fruits and vegetables delivered to my house before it was a thing. It's like 12
Yeah.
years ago. There was one company locally that did that. We did the juicing and all that stuff. So we had to move from that, and that was very expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. That at least for us, vegetables was a place for them to come and die in our fridge.
Well, and there
You
was
know,
that too. There was like,
it's healthy, you're supposed to buy it and eat it because it's healthy, but it's sat in the fridge and rotted because I don't like vegetables, and it's so hard to timely cook those things, you know?
right. And it was a lot of time and effort. We were sprouting our beans and seeds. It's like
Right?
crazy. Making our own little juices. We had no idea. Who knows what my fasting insulin was then? I know it couldn't have been good.
Right, absolutely. So do you do anything in terms of meeting others that eat this way? Any
Well, we just, again, in the PhD community, when I heard people talking about meetups and all those kinds of things, I thought, well, why don't we have a meetup? And somebody had created, actually, Coach Kevin had created a space for a Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, tri state area meetup. And a couple of people threw it out, let's meet for dinner, but it was last minute. By the time I saw it, it was too late. And I thought, well, shoot, what does it take to set up a meetup, right? So I reserved a shelter in September at a local park in Cincinnati, and I put the word out on Ken Berry's group. I said, "Hey, let's have a meetup," and I had never been to one, so I don't even know what you do at a meetup, right? But I know it, and I didn't know if anybody would come. I didn't know anybody,
Mhm.
so we did that in September. 8 people came, so that was
Nice.
kind of fun. And two of the people that came lived a mile apart from each other and had never met. They're in the Cincinnati area. And one of the ladies had been carnivore for 4 years and she'd never met anybody who ate the way she does. Like she's
Wow.
been to every, so we've had them every month. I need to schedule January, February now. But yeah, by November, so we had October, we had 6 people, I think. November, we had like 14 people and they came from pretty far away. It was amazing. So I did a little Christmas party with just people. I did it at my house.
Right.
Uh, I just invited people I had met and we had 14 people. 14 said they would come and 14 showed up. Like, who does that?
Right.
Of
Carnivores.
course. But we will be scheduling. I committed to schedule monthly meetups for all of 2024. We've drawn a lot of people from Indiana and Northern Ohio. So we're going to take those and, rotate between north of Dayton and then down by the river by Kentucky. Really
Awesome.
excited about that. And then Keto Palooza, went to that in October.
Mhm.
Got to meet a few people. Mm,
Nice. Very cool.
very rich.
So
It's
in
really
term
cool.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it just was so funny how when you get together, it's like we didn't know we're all from different kinds of backgrounds. We're from different areas of the tri-state, different lifestyles, except for the carnivore and ketovore and keto. I think most of them are ketovore or carnivore. And there's an instant bond. We all have something in common. We all have the same issues with families and friends who don't get it. And we all watch the same YouTube people.
Nice.
So we exchanged gifts and I got this big mug and I'm like, oh, somebody stole my shirt, but that's okay because I got a mug as big as Rachel's head. So as big as Rachel's mug, everybody knew what I was talking about. They all seen Rachel's big coffee cup.
Right? That's awesome.
It's
I love
kind of
that.
fun. Yeah.
So you said you're a member of Dr. Barry's group. How has that benefited you?
Oh, that's been great. That's been a big encouragement, just even hearing the other people and how they're moving through their journey is a big encouragement. It's like, oh, that's what that is. That was where I really clicked for me. Not that I hadn't heard Dr. Berry and other doctors, talk about insulin resistance. And I had heard them. Well, insulin resistance, I didn't get till I got into the books. I heard them talk about it, but I didn't get it. But the carbohydrate addiction, that was in the community, listening to other people and their journeys was when it just finally clicked for me. So, yeah, I really enjoy that. And now that they have the coaching areas, that's really helpful because they all kind of have a different take on things
Hmm.
and it's just very helpful. And then of course the lives that we get, I'm a $12 member. So I love that Wednesday afternoon live, at noon that happens to be during my break time between bus routes when I actually can sit down and if I have a question, he'll answer it, and my husband had prostate cancer last year. I had some questions, what about this and what about that? And he's careful how he answers things. I'm not your doctor. You need to go to your doctor, but here's what I would do, and
Right.
here's what you might want to look at. So been very helpful.
Well, and you said your husband he's also on the carnivore diet or ketovore.
He's funny. He will eat whatever I make for him. So
Okay.
so when I was keto, kind of, he was still buying chips and, every once in a while he's had Pepsi addiction, which he's had for years, which I didn't truly appreciate till a year ago. I'm like, really? Pepsi addiction? It's like, I get it now because I was 130 pounds overweight at the time and he was 60 pounds overweight. So he was the skinny guy, right? He was
Right.
only 60 pounds overweight. So I didn't get this addiction kind of thing, but I kind of get it now. And then when he was diagnosed with prostate cancer in June, it kind of in May, we kind of, we knew his PSA was like 74. You know?
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it was scary. That was very scary. So he never wanted to count his carbs. I wanted him to go below 10 total, close to zero as you can, honey. But he did cut out all the playing around, with his chips and crackers, and he did cut those out.
Okay.
So he's been lower, but mostly because he just eats what I give him, and that's all they
Right.
eat.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So, how is his cancer now?
Well, we believe we believe it's gone. The
Oh.
He had radiation for 6 weeks, every day for 6 weeks. And then he went back into and he had a hormone shot, which because when you're scared and you don't know anything, we went into the doctor and he said, yeah, surgery is not a good option for what he had. It had traveled a little bit locally,
Hmm.
uh, not as much as what I had feared. Before he had his testing, I knew it was in his bones and in his bones and lungs. I think I had decided like, no, it wasn't anywhere. They have these great scans now. They can scan, they can see everywhere. It was very localized. So they told him radiation for 6 weeks and hormone therapy for 2 years. And they gave him a shot that lasted 3 or 4 months. And they expected him to get that, every 3 or 4 months, whatever it was. And he said, okay. We both said, okay. I was sitting there too. And we're driving home and it's like, I can't believe that we took that shot without researching. We hadn't even heard of it before we went there. So we went
Right.
home and did some research. Like, yeah, no, we're not doing it anymore.
Wow.
So, and he went back to the doctor a month ago. They took his PSA and they told us, they said, we keep checking your PSA and it'll be down to 5 or 6 because of the hormones. Well, they took his PSA, it was point 0.8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we're like, and he's had a lot of prayer and he's done everything that they told him to. Well, he didn't eat the diet they told him to eat. He ate the diet he
Right.
knew was better. Right.
Hmm.
And the doctor was very concerned that he wouldn't take the next shot. and he really pushed hard for that. And Mike pushed back and he said, no, I don't know that it works. And he said, and you expect my PSA to be 5 or 6. It's much lower than you expected. And he's like, well, yeah. And I wanted to know, why don't you just do another scan? Because I kept telling him, you still have cancer. You need to take these shots, these hormone shots,
Right.
and they said, well, the scan's very expensive and insurance won't pay for it. Like, well, would we do anything different if we took the scan? Probably not. So
Mhm.
he's going to continue his diet. He looks great. He's happy.
But he's
But he
eating
asked,
the carnivore diet effectively, and it hasn't the cancer is still being kept at bay. Is that
yes,
right? Okay.
definitely. They definitely said that all they do is check PSA periodically, and there's no way he could have cancer with a low PSA. Okay. It was
Right.
point 0.8. What number were you looking for?
Yeah, that's almost within the margin of error for sure.
Yeah, that's what they would expect somebody without cancer to have. So we'll
Right.
continue to get the PSA checked, but he's not doing hormones and he's continuing to keep his carbs low.
What was the hormone, by chance? Was it Eligard?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That
Yeah,
was the
the
one.
reason I know that is my business partner had prostate cancer, and that's what they're giving him.
Was
But
he?
coincidentally, he's eating a vegan diet to as an elimination diet, and he's having some health issues and things, and that it's come back now. So, yeah, I'm trying to convince him to go to eat carnivore, so we'll see. Yeah,
Yeah.
the doctor finally said, "Okay, you need to start eating some protein," and told him to start eating fish, and, so I'm like, "Okay, that's the first step." So, you know, ribeyes are coming next, brother.
Takes a little bit of fish oil. Take some cod oil with your fish.
Right. Exactly. Yep. So
Oh, that is something. Yeah, when he went in for the radiation, when they were setting that up, they gave him a diet that he should eat while he's taking radiation. And
mhm.
meat, they had a don't eat these things and do eat these things. Meat wasn't even on the list, wasn't on the do or the don't. But on the
Oh,
do list, waffles was the thing that made me hit the roof. Waffles was on the do
waffles?
list.
Oh my
Waffles,
goodness.
cereal, all kinds of sugar stuff. Like, who eats a waffle without syrup, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
waffle's bad enough by itself, but of course and syrup was not on either list, sugar was not on either list.
Mhm.
Yeah. And Mike looked at it and he said, well, I don't eat carbohydrates and I've got gluten issues and, I don't eat this way. The doctor, this is last summer, the doctor looked at me in the room too. And he said, oh, well, I guess you guys probably eat a lot of meat potatoes. He said, I guess that'll be okay. But then you need to get healthy after that. You'll get colon cancer from eating all that meat and potatoes.
No.
We didn't respond. Like, of course we don't eat the potatoes, but
Right.
thanks for nothing. Yeah.
Right?
So
Wow, that's
it was disappointing that they have to know. They have to know that sugar feeds cancer. They have to know that.
yeah, it's hard to think that they're almost willfully ignorant at this point, for sure, yeah, to the proper human diet. It seems incredible that the common person can know about these things, but somebody who's trained to help others just has no clue in this area.
Great. It's disappointing. And I know my doctor, I've had my doctor for 20 years and I'll keep him. I like him. He's a good guy. He does the best he knows how to do. 10
Right.
years ago, when he was counseling me and saying, you've got a window of opportunity to not get into issues as you get older. You need to get this weight off. And I said, I've tried everything I can think of. I said, what do you recommend? What works? What have you seen work with your patients? And he kind of thought about it. Maybe people don't ask him that kind of thing. And he said, even with the weight surgery, they gain it back. He said, they always gain it back. He said, I guess Weight Watchers, so I actually went back to Weight Watchers 10 years ago. Like, yeah, I found that little book. It was 273, lost 20 pounds, gained it all back.
Mhm.
He really doesn't know, but he's being educated because he's seen me now the last couple of years. And when I went in, it was priceless. I went in November for my annual physical, and I asked him to get my labs first. I was worried about what the cholesterol and those numbers might be. I wanted to be prepared with, with my research papers. You know, the labs came back better than they've been in over 20 years. Every single one of them, even the cholesterol, every single one, better than in 20 years. The whole time he's been seeing me. And he's looking at my labs and he's like, and your BMI, he said, I put people on medication, they don't do this well. What are you doing? And I told them, keto, because I didn't want to scare him.
Right.
So
Well,
about
hey, you're not being dishonest. You're in ketosis. So,
Well, I did tell him less than 10 total carbs. I said, remember a year ago when we thought I had cancer? I said, went to less than 10 total carbs and it felt so good. I just kept doing it,
right.
And it's like, "Ew." So then he actually called me and I'm off all my medications. So I was off of the Prilosec last summer. I came off the
Hmm.
antidepressant. I came off 2 years ago. And then I started dialing down my blood pressure medicine this fall because I was getting dizzy. You gotta lean over, check under the bus. I'd stand up and get dizzy. Oh, okay. Checking my blood pressure. So when I went to see him, I had been off it for 2 weeks already. And he took my blood pressure. He took it twice because he didn't believe it. It was like 127 over 70. And I said, yeah, and I haven't had any blood pressure in 2 weeks.
What?
Didn't get
That's
So I'm on
awesome.
all those medications, and he's never seen me this healthy. So he's learning. And then he put in my notes that I should come back in 6 months. So in all these years with all these problems, he's only seen me once a year, but he wants
Uh,
to see it. And I'm going. I want full labs again in June.
That's awesome. So
Can
you're
Angie
saving money. You're saving money by not buying prescriptions now.
Oh, yes. Yeah. There was a time in my life, I actually had to take a job transfer once when my boys they were just turning 20, early 20s, just being launched out into the world. And I was a single mom. They were my life,
Hmm.
in the Cincinnati area. And I worked for Anthem. They were headquartered over in Indianapolis. And they told me, you want to keep your job, you need to move to Indianapolis. I didn't want to do that. So having my first grandchild that year, did not want to go. And as I sat down and did the math, it's like I was on $800 worth of medications every month if I had to pay for them myself. And at worst case, I don't move, I get fired. I didn't know if I was healthy enough to find another job like that, learn a new job, all those things. Okay, so I'll be working at Wendy's for minimum wage. I've always been frugal, debt free is my middle name, so I was well situated that I could have stayed in my house, kept my cars. I could have lived pretty much an unaltered lifestyle on a one-day salary, except I couldn't afford my medications. And I had to transfer to keep my job because I didn't want to be a burden to my kids. So yeah, because of $800 a month of medications. Like it's
Wow.
great to not have that. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. So you're in a much better financial position by eating meat mostly, just by eliminating the prescriptions. Reduced your bill almost in half, and no doubt, I'm sure you're saving money on gas because you're not going to the store as often. And
That's true. Well, and I'm fortunate enough to live in a neighborhood where I can walk to the grocery store.
oh, nice,
On a nice day, I take my little red wagon and I just walk over to the grocery store. It's kind of nice. Yeah,
awesome. You get some exercise too, bringing back big old heavy steaks.
that's right. There's a big hill between here and there. So that's
That's
fun. It
awesome,
is. I still sometimes look at the conveyor belt at the grocery store when I put all my things on there and that looks a little odd. It's just all meat.
right? Yeah,
Sometimes a hunk of cheese, sometimes some heavy whipping cream, but mostly just meat.
right. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So if someone is watching and they are considering a carnivore, keto diet, and what they're hearing from you, and they had the reaction that you had when you heard from those individuals, you just eat meat. What would you say to that person?
I would say just start with where you are. You know, that if you're eating a standard American diet, you're probably eating about 300 carbs a day, and I love Carb Manager. It's free and I still log every day because I have played so many food games over the years that if I don't log, then I don't really know what the truth is. So I log, I had a maraschino cherry yesterday. I put it on my log, so that if I want to know why I'm having a carb craving, like, oh, well, maybe it happened. So I would say to find a way to actually log for a few days and see where you are
Hmm.
and then cut down from there. If you're at 300 carbs a day, if you if you think you have cancer, it's like, okay, go ahead, bite the bullet, go down to less than 10. But if you just want to be healthy for the rest of your life, ease into it. To what can you do to cut out 50 carbs tomorrow? Look at what you did today. What can you do different tomorrow? And just cut it down gradually. And what you find is over time, you're gonna feel so much better. And I think that's what I did. And then whenever I got down to 100 carbs or so, it was pretty easy. Going from 300 to 100 was hard because you got to change a lot of things about what you do. But from 100 to 20 for me was really easy. 20 to 10, really easy because you look at it, it's like, oh, if I just cut out that one thing, if I quit taking these gummy vitamins, that cuts out 10 carbs. Truly, that's not a year ago. I had 10 carbs a day in gummy vitamins. Really?
Wow.
Just start gradually. A lot of people don't I've seen people who do start with carnivore. Amanda from Carnivorous Me, cake of cookies one day and just meat the next day. And I admire those people. I'm not one of them. I think a lot of people are not. If you could do that, great. I think, yeah, that's the way to go. But to gradually ease into it, it took 2 years for me to actually kind of get this thing figured out where I can make it work every day. And I love it. And I feel the freedom. But in those 2 years where I had so many failures, I lost 70 pounds, you know, lost all my medications. I gained energy and joy, happiness. I mean, yeah, it's amazing. It's like you can give yourself grace to try and to fail and readjust. It's a process.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. That's really great advice. So, in terms of your how you feel age, where do you feel you are?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I did when I was in my 30s, and so that's like, I'm 64. Even the kids on my bus, one of the kids on my bus, when I talk about grandchildren sometimes, you remind me of my grandson. Like, you have a grandson? Yeah, I have grandchildren older than you. How old are you? And I tell them, they go, because they're thinking of their grandparents, you
Right.
know. So I know that that comes across also. It's not just me, but I really do feel younger. And we are blessed to live in a community where we have walking trails and a nice little I'm getting a dog.
Oh,
I
nice.
need a dog who can walk around. That's a 3-mile hike. And, Mike's not always up for that. So I need a dog who begs me to go for a walk every. I haven't felt like that since early 30s, 30 years.
That's awesome. I love
Amazing.
that. Yeah, I'm late 40s and I definitely feel like I'm in my 20s. It's insane. I think I feel like when I was in my 20s, I don't even think I felt this good.
Yeah.
It's weird, but I
Well,
love it.
yeah. It's amazing. And we need that. We need that energy. We need that clarity of mind. We need bodies that work and that don't hurt all the time. We need to not have to sleep 10 hours a day just to function because there's a lot of things we need to do, right? As
Absolutely.
Christians and as spouses and parents and grandparents, there are things we need to do as patriots. Yeah.
Absolutely. For sure. So, Karen, where can everyone find you on the internet?
Well, I do have the YouTube channel, which I'm going to start doing weekly updates. It's Choosing to Live One at YouTube. And I also have a Rumble Choosing to Live. I didn't need the number one over there. So
Okay.
hopefully they're not quite the same, but I do load videos to both places. And I have about a dozen videos out there right now, but encouraged by others that I've seen. When you can see I have another 60 pounds to lose. And it's like when you see somebody every week it is encouraging to see how they change over time. So
Hmm.
I will be putting something out every week.
That's awesome. I love that. I'll definitely put links to your channel in the description below. And Karen, I thank you so much for spending time with me today. And it was a pleasure to get to know you better. And you're going to be an inspiration to many. I truly believe that. And I can't wait to see more content from your channel. And thanks so much.
Thank you, Adam. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Take care.
Okay.